liking my videos. In our last lesson, we talked about tenses, and we saw the three main tense forms and four different aspects of these three tense forms. So overall, we can say we have how many tenses? 12 of them or three. Which one? Put it on your comments in the comment section. What do you think about that? In today's lesson, we want to consider sequence of tenses. What do we mean by sequence of tenses? Well, when you have a sentence that has more than two clauses, usually the principal followed by the subordinate clauses, the relation between the tenses of the verbs is called the sequence of tenses. Yes, so that relation, that complement of one verb tense complementing another verb tense is what we refer to as the sequence of tenses. Let's look at these examples to illustrate. Example 1. When he goes home, he does his chores and sleeps. You will realize that this sentence has about three clauses. When he goes home, he does his chores, the clause 2, and sleeps. So you realize that the verb elements in this sentence has the same verb tense, present tense, the present tense, and the present tense. So the verb tenses in each of these clauses of the sentence follows the same pattern. Example 2. He knew that he was telling a lie. He knew that as he knew, the first clause, that he was telling a lie, another clause. In each of the clauses of the sentence, we have the same verb tense. In other words, the tense is following the same sequence or pattern. Let's look at a third example. This time you understand. It was a sad day for Ghana when the Black Stars lost the match. It was and lost. So was and lost follow the same sequence. Our last example would be, although he followed his manager, he doesn't meddle in his affairs. Is that correct? If we want to follow the grammatical rule, you realize that in the last example, I did say that he does in the second clause. Well, as a rule in grammar, we would consider that to be wrong. But hey, we want to talk about something very important in this conversation. What are we going to talk about in this conversation? That in English grammar, when you are both speaking or you are writing, the sequence of tenses or the ordering of tenses of verbs may vary. There could be some variations. Let me say that I am putting this across based on my academic enterprise and teaching experience, as well as the readings I have been able to do from certain good grammar books authored by renowned authors like Quirk and others like Riddle, and many other books that are in the system or may be helpful to you. So I am now more than convinced that there are certain factors that can influence the sequence of tenses. I am more than convinced that sequence of tenses cannot always be based on the grammatical rule, cannot always be solely based on rules. But they can be based on certain other factors. What are these factors? We can identify at least five of these other factors. The first one would be the semantic factor. What do I mean by semantic factor? Semantics in linguistics means the meaning. So, what the person wants to mean can influence the choice of tense forms. The second factor will be the pragmatic factors. And by this, I talking about the relevance of the information or the implicator or implications that the person want to talk about. Maybe he wants to convey certain implications of unresolved state of affairs, or is a belief in the truth, or he wants to talk about something that is about natural justice. That can also affect the sequence of tenses. The third factor will be the discourse factor. Discourse means conversation. So sometimes when we are talking or we are having a conversation, there are certain things that can affect our conversation. For instance, the setting, which means the time and the place of the action, can also affect the sequence of tenses. Then we can also talk about the context, the contextual meaning, that can also play an important role in tense selection. The fourth crucial factor in determining the choice between the present and past tenses in a sequence of tenses environment is the speaker's or the writer's intention in uttering the sentence. The person's intention. We cannot read the intention of the person. And the final factor, if maybe there is any finality to it, is that the main clause can also be a factor. Can we now take a look at a few examples? And these examples will definitely be helping us to be able to understand how these factors, five factors we have identified, could play a crucial role in what? In determining the sequence of tenses. Let's look at these few examples. In each of these examples, I'll give you two options. One, it was alleged that the minister is responsible for the crime, but it turned out to be a palpable falsehood. It was alleged, past tense in that clause, but remember I said it is the minister who is responsible for the crime, but it turned out to be a palpable falsehood. The speaker may be saying that at the time the allegation was made, the minister was there. And at the time the allegation is made or was made, we still have the minister still alive. The minister is there. So either of the statements could be true. Another example, she told me yesterday that she was no longer interested in me. She told me yesterday that she was no longer interested in me. So the semantic, the intention was right. But this sentence could also be rendered in another way. She told me yesterday she is no longer interested in me. I'm still alive. And she said only that thing yesterday that she is. So that sentence could be correct. Another factor or another example, scientists knew that the earth was round. So some time ago, scientists knew that. But could it also be correct to say scientists knew that the earth is round? This is a universal truth. Take a look at this example. We all knew it that the earth is round and the sun rises from the east. In this context, can we say the sun rose from the east? It is a universal truth. It's a fact, undeniable fact, that the sun still rises from the East. With these, we can conclude that it is not always that when we use the present tense in the clause that precedes, the second clause should necessarily follow the same sequence. Dear candidate, anytime you are writing, be sure of what exactly you want to communicate. And by and large, we have seen that it is good to follow the grammatical rule of sequence of tenses. However, there are certain factors which are the semantic, the pragmatic, the discourse factor, the main clause, and finally the conversation that is in play could in fact affect your sequence of tenses. Whichever way you want to use your sequence of tenses, dear candidate, make sure you communicate clearly so that the listener will know exactly the message you are putting across. If you did enjoy this part of the discussion, or you have any challenge, you may put it in the comment section and ensure that we continue to enjoy modern day English in our conversations and in our writings. Thank you for joining me on this journey.